Give your neighbor a high five and say, welcome to Metanoia Dallas. We're so glad you're here. We are so happy you are here. So November, I'm going to go ahead and talk about something that people don't want to talk about, but I'm going to go ahead and say it right now. We just really disrespecting Thanksgiving. Yeah, I said it. We're really disrespecting Thanksgiving, right? So y'all going to stand there and act like you don't know what I'm talking about? All these trees and these lights up and everything. Nobody wants to. Now, let me tell you why. I'm going to tell you why I think everyone disrespects Thanksgiving just before I start preaching, okay? So, you don't have to take notes about this one. Because in Christmas, you receive most of the time. And thanks, you got to give. Now, I said it, and I'm through, okay? No, but I'm glad you guys are here. We're in a series. It's about Thanksgiving. It's called ThanksLiving. It's talking about living a life that God created you to live, a life of gratitude, a life, giving thanks. Something special to be able to give thanks, to have an attitude of gratitude. And so today, we're talking about gratitude versus joy killers. Okay? We know what that is, right? A joy killer. Things that sabotage your joy. Things that we allow to destroy our joy. Things that we allow to come into our life and just mess everything up, right? Have you ever said things like, I was doing good until... And you fill in the blank, right? Until you said that, or until the kids start running around acting crazy, or until your boss said whatever. I was doing good until... That's a joy killer. But let's talk about gratitude, because gratitude is an attitude. It's a perspective. And I want to talk about the two. I want to parallel both of them and tell you what causes gratitude and what causes joy kill, or something that kills your joy. Okay, let's unpack it. First thing I want to discuss is partner gratitude with life. Now, we discussed last week. If you missed it, I want you to go back to our YouTube channel or download our Metanoia DFW app, and we talked about the who, the what, and the when. We need to be grateful for who comes in our life and leaves our life, right? But the only way we can do that is we have to partner gratitude with life. Let me explain it. And so it's difficult to be able to partner gratitude with life when you don't make the connection. You see? Like, you don't make the connection when someone comes into your life and they leave your life. You got to make the connection. Who comes in your life? Who comes out of your life? You got to appreciate that. Guess what? They come in your life for reasons, seasons, and a lifetime. Typically, you don't have a person in your life for a lifetime. That's just the facts. And we got to identify, and we got to make the connection. And then we can be grateful for who comes into our life, because we won't think that everybody's supposed to be in our life forever. They come into our life for a reason, a season, and then some people are for a lifetime. We used to could say marriages were for a lifetime, right? But now marriages are falling apart, even Christian marriages. And so lifetime relationships, you have to identify who they are. And you partner your life with gratitude. You put it together, because I'm going to tell you what happens. Disconnection kills gratitude. When you can't make the connection in life that this has something to do with the sovereignty of God, you begin to have a lack of joy. It's very important for us to understand that everything that happens because of God allowed it or He caused it. But either way, He'll use it. Okay? God either allowed it or He caused it, but either way, He'll use it. And when we don't make that connection, we find ourselves frustrated, and we allow our joy to be killed. So important for us to make the connection, because disconnection kills gratitude. We just don't understand how this came into our life, because we don't make the connection. Somehow we don't understand that this hardship or this who came into our life. And you know what? That who came into our life and God allowed it. And when we don't make that connection, we find ourselves very, very frustrated. When we won't make that connection and understand not only the who, but what happens in our life, what happens in my life, when we don't make that connection, we find ourselves frustrated, irritated, because we don't make the connection that God is in charge and God allowed it or he caused it. But either way, God will use it. So it's so important for us to be able to make that connection because we have to partner gratitude with life occurrences, things that happen in our life, people that come into our life, timing of life. The timing of life is very important because sometimes we're frustrated because things don't happen when we want it to happen. And so when we don't partner life with gratitude, we find ourselves disconnected and it kills our joy. Bible says in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 verse 18, it says, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. Very important. We unpacked that last week, so we're not going to touch that, but it's so important for us to be grateful in all circumstances. Partner life and gratitude. Make sure that they partner and they connect. Be grateful for the gospel. So important, for us to have joy. We'll have joy when we're grateful for the gospel. When we are reflecting on what Jesus done. When we remember that Jesus broke the shackles of sin in our life. We won't run around complaining when we can reflect back on what Jesus done in our lives. It's so important that we would always reflect and point back to what Jesus done in our lives. I used to think that, people were always just hanging my past over me, but they were trying to help me to always be ready to give thanks for what God has done in my life and where he's brought me from. See, often when we don't consider where God brought us from, what we do is we begin to start complaining about what's going on in our lives. And that kills the joy that God wants to overflow in our hearts. When we don't understand that we need to, one, make the connection, and also, two, be grateful. Be grateful for the gospel of Jesus Christ. I'm going to tell you why we need to be grateful for the gospel of Jesus Christ, because sin kills joy. Just like disconnection kills joy or disconnection kills gratitude, sin kills joy. It's something about sin that causes you to be miserable and frustrated and always, overwhelmed because, sin kills joy. Psalm chapter 51 verses 1 through 4 explains that it shows us that sin kills joy. It kills it. It turns into a lack of gratitude where you're not grateful for what God has done. You're complaining about what happened because guess what? You're not remembering the sin that you were caught up in. Because when we remember the sin that we were caught up in, guess what? We're grateful. But when we go back to that sin and we overwhelm ourselves with that sin, something happens. It destroys the joy and the gratitude that we should have in our lives. So important for us to understand it. This don't just happen to people like us, human beings here on earth. There are people in the Bible that they constantly went back to their vomit, went back to their sin, went back to their old ways. And when they did, it expressed how miserable they were, how frustrated they were, how it really just dealt with them internally. You begin to start thinking people are talking about you when you're in sin. Have you ever been in sin and you stepped in the room, somebody started laughing, you start looking around like, they just having fun. Can they have joy? Can they have a great time? You just stepped in the room, so happened. Can you laugh with them? Why are you so frustrated that they got joy? What's wrong? You walk through the door, and as soon as you walk through it, when they start laughing, you swear up and down, they talking about you. I'm not the only one. You walk through the door, and you're like, what's going on here? What's happening? Because sin kills joy. Sin kills joy. Psalms chapter 51 verse 1 says this: have mercy on me, O God, according to your steadfast love, And according to your abundant mercy, blot out my transgressions. This is the King David after he made an awful decision of preying on a young lady named Bathsheba that he watched grow up. And he strategically set up a plan where he could have sex with her. He sent everybody away to go to war. And the Bible says kings should have been at war at that time. He should have been at war with, he should have been at the front line with his team, making sure that they conquered this nation. But when kings went to war, David sent everyone away. And when he sent everyone away, he said, okay, now everybody's gone. And then he got on his balcony and he watched Bathsheba bathe. And then he got one of his servants and said, go get that girl. I want her for me. Now, let me tell you this. No one could reject the king. No one could say, I'm not going to go. So Bathsheba really had no choice. The king is calling her. And as the king's calling her, she could say no and get killed off with the head, or she could go and just surrender herself to whatever the king. That's how it went in those days. So she went. And when she went, he had sex with her. And after he had sex with her, she was with baby, with child. She was pregnant. And then trying to cover up his scam, his scheme, his manipulation, he called her husband Uriah, who was out there doing what he was supposed to be doing, what any rightful, righteous man would be doing, fighting for his nation, fighting for their future, fighting for their family. That's what he was doing. And so David called him in and says, hey, why don't you hang out with your wife? And he said, no, I'm okay. And he says, no, hang out with your wife. And so he went home and he slept at the front door. He says, I will not go outside. I will not go inside, I won't go inside because everyone else is at war and I'm supposed to be at war. I shouldn't be laying with my wife. Everyone else don't get to lay with their wife, so I'm going to lay right here. And so David got wind because David got eyes everywhere, right? He's like, oh, he didn't go in? Okay, well, hold on, come here. And so he challenged him to do it again. He didn't do it. He says, well, I know I'm going to have to do something with this dude. And look how faithful Uriah was. David wrote a note and said, put Uriah on the front line. Front line meaning set him up to get killed. And so as he sets him up to get killed, he got his death letter in his hand. Uriah runs off and gives it to the commanding officer. The commanding officer reads it and looks and says, Uriah, they want you on the front line. And he was so faithful. He went on the front line and he got killed. And so David finds out, oh my God, sometime later, this is wrong. And he writes in his memoirs, he writes a letter. And this is what we're reading in Psalm chapter 51. Psalm chapter 51 verse 2 says, wash me thoroughly from my iniquity. He's talking about the sin he committed with Bathsheba. He said, and cleanse me from my sin. For I know my transgressions, and my sins is ever before me. Watch how he says it. Against you and only you have I sinned and done what is evil in your sight. See, he put it in his proper perspective. Now he's trying to regain his joy because he's making the connection. He's connecting life to God. He's realizing that, you know what? If I'm committing a sin, it's not against a person. It's against God. It's not because the church said it's wrong. It's not because they say, it's because God's words say, it's because God. And so he's in this mess and he's saying, I want to get out of it. This doesn't sound like a joyful man. This man sounds like he's overwhelmed by his sin. This man feels, he's not grateful at this time. And so in 51:12, look what it says in Psalm 51:12. He says, restore to me the joy of your salvation. There it is, the gospel of salvation. The gospel brings joy. Sin kills joy. And uphold me with a willing spirit. I want King David explain how he would sing if he would blot out his sin and forgive him. He says, all the days of my life I will sing. And then as you read on in Psalm 51, he says, you know what? I will actually even tell other transgressors, other sinners, that if they're wrong, you know what? That I already paid the price. I messed up already in that area. Don't do that because it's going to kill your joy. It's going to destroy what God wants to do in your life. He says, restore to me the joy of your salvation. There's something about the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's why we should be grateful for the gospel. Because, see, Jesus Christ paid a debt that he didn't know. And we owed a debt that we couldn't pay. And that's what they call the substitution. And the doctrine is called substitution. It's the great exchange, where Jesus exchanged his life for yours and mine. And so that's why we should be grateful for the gospel. It does something when you're grateful for the gospel. You're lit up, you're on fire and excited because Jesus, he shed his blood for you, and you know you don't deserve it, but he saved your life. When we are appreciative of what God has done for us, we're joyful. When we are appreciative of what God has done for us, we are joyful. We're joyful. You're excited about what God has done. When you're thinking about what he's done for you, you're always full of joy. You notice the people that got a lot of joy, they're always talking about, how grateful they are to the Lord. They're always talking about what God has done in their life. But the people that are not grateful, the people are full of just complaints. They don't have a lot of joy. They're talking about what they don't have. The people with joy are talking about what they do have and what God has done and what they think God is going to do in the future. They believe that, guess what? This is not it. Even though I might not have what I want, God has always met every need I've had. Even though I might not have the things that I really think that I should have, God sees fit for me to have the things I do have. And so it's so important for us to be appreciative of what God has done in our lives. You are grateful. This is another thing I want you to see, because we're making the parallel. Sin kills joy. Disconnection kills joy. Also, hopelessness kills joy. When you're hopeless, when you act like just things are not going to get better, let me tell you what hope says. Hope says my yesterday is not going to be better than my today. And watch this. And my tomorrow is going to be better than my today. Watch this. Hope says my future is going to be better than my past. Hope is future oriented. It's always saying this is not it. But hopelessness calls you to begin to examine something and just stare at it and fixate your mind on it and begin to get boggled down by what's going on and what is. But God is a God of who is and what was and what's to come. And we be forgetting that God is a God of what's to come. And we forget, and we get caught up in what is. So we miss what is going to come. And we're moved by our circumstances. Let me tell you, you are grateful in the hope that is before you. That's what I want you to be. Be grateful in the hope that is before you. Be grateful. Those who have joy, they're grateful in the hope that is before them. They're grateful for what's about to happen. It hasn't happened yet. But you better get ready. Let me tell you something about our God. And then let me tell you something about what God wants us to do. Expectation tells you that you are ready. Expectation is the breeding ground for a miracle. Like when you're expectant and you're always expecting something, some people think those type of people are foolish, right? But don't worry. People think I'm foolish a lot of times because I'm always talking about some big stuff. I'm always talking about big stuff and they're like, whatever. Okay. Then some people fall off. They don't stick around. I'm like, okay, you just ain't going to see it. You just ain't going to be a part. Because God is about to do something amazing. And you got to always be expecting great things. You got to always be expecting God to do great things. Expectation is the breeding ground for a miracle. Let me go a little further. Preparation says that you believe what you're expecting. Because if you don't prepare, you don't believe that God's going to do something. Noah started building a boat, a big old boat at that. They called it an ark. And everybody like, man, what's wrong with this dude? He crazy. It's going to rain. They're like, man, you tripping. It's going to rain. I'm telling you, it's going to rain. And he was preparing because he believed what God said. See, you and I, we got to get to a point where we start believing in God in such a way that we start preparing in a way that everybody will think you crazy. Everybody thinks something's wrong with you because you'll be preparing in such a way, believing that God is about to do something amazing. We got to be grateful in the hope that is before us. It's not here right now, but we are believing that God is going to do something special. Because I'm telling you, hopelessness kills joy. You walk around and you complain and you're frustrated because you just don't see anything happening ahead of you. You don't see how God is going to work it out. Now, God never told you that he was going to tell you how it was going to work. He never told me how he was going to work it out. That's the beauty about God. God says, I just need a little bit of faith. I need you to believe a little bit. I need you to believe a little bit more. I need you to believe that I am able to do the impossible. So important for us to stop trying to figure out how God going to do it and start just believing that God can do it. Do you believe God can do it? Do you believe God can do it? Do you believe God can do it? We don't need to know how he's going to do it. It's just as long as we know he's going to do it. Because if he said it, he's going to do it. But I'm telling you, when there's no hope, there's disappointment, there's insecurities, and there's a lot of fears. When we don't have hope, a lack of hope causes us to be insecure. We have fears, and we are disappointed. I want you to grasp this as well. Be grateful for the faith God has given you. Do you know the Bible says that every person that puts their faith in Jesus Christ has a measure of faith? I don't know what your measuring stick is. Don't get mad that mine is a foot and a half and yours is 2 inches. Be grateful for the measuring faith you do have. The measure of faith you do have. You know what I'm saying? And you operate in the proportion of the faith that he's given you. That's what the Bible says, that we supposed to operate in the proportion of faith or the gift that he has given us. Be grateful. I'm grateful for the faith that he has given me. He's giving you a measure of faith. Somebody say, I got a measure of faith. Look, I'm telling you, faith is what matures you. When we operate in faith, that's what matures us. Philippians chapter 1, verse 25 through 27 says, convinced of this. The Apostle Paul said he's convinced of this. I know that I will remain and continue with you all for your progress, for your development, for your growth, and joy in faith. See, there's something about faith. You have joy when you function in your faith. That's why the Bible says, blessed are those. And when he's saying blessed, he's saying happy are those that do such and such. All throughout Matthew chapter 5, it says blessed. And all those are taken by faith. So if you don't have faith in it, you won't have no joy. See, it's something about having joy, just saturating your mind. Man, I don't like being miserable. I don't like isolating myself and letting my mind just ramble. I don't like my emotions to be in an uproar. I want to have joy. I want to be overwhelmed by joy that comes directly from God because of my faith is anchored in you. He says, convinced of this, I know that I will remain and continue with you for your progress and joy in the faith. So that in me, you may have ample cause to glory in Christ Jesus because of me coming to you again. Look what it says in verse 27. I love this part. Only let your manner of life be worthy of the gospel of Jesus Christ, so that whether I come and see you or I'm absent, I may hear that you are standing firm in one spirit, one mind, striving side by side for the faith of the gospel of Jesus Christ. So important for us to hold on to our faith. We got to hold on to faith because there are so many things trying to strip you of it. Information often try to strip you of your faith. Let me explain. Some of us, we get oversaturated with social media and the news, and I've never seen nobody look at the news and walk away and be pumped up believing that God can do something amazing. I've never seen someone scroll all day through social media and walk away and say, you know what, I just believe God is just so good. What does it do? When you begin to start saturating your mind with this information, what does it do? It causes you to start worrying. What does it do? It causes you to start thinking. What does it do? You begin to start overwhelming yourself with all this information. Information often strips you of the faith that you need. That's why I'm here to tell you that immaturity kills joy. Immaturity kills joy. It's something about. It is something about, growing in your faith because it causes you to have joy. You're just blessed. You're happy. Why? Because you're holding on to the faith that God has given you. I'm going to tell you, let's be grateful for diversity. Look around our church. I love our church. I love Metanoia Dallas. Just look around, look around. It's somebody that don't look like you at all, right? And I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. We didn't even try to do this. I wish I could say that we were intentional about this. But all of a sudden, we just started looking around, and there was so many different races and so many different nationalities and so many different economic, brackets. And I was like, this is amazing. And it's very good because let me tell you about diversity. Diversity brings gratitude. You're grateful for the next person no matter where they stand at. It's something about diversity. Diversity brings so much purity to life because it gives you a different perspective that you didn't have. And it's okay. People that don't like diversity, they always want to clap back at people. Let me explain what clap back means for the visitors. Meaning you always want to argue and you're dogmatic about a situation. You always just so heavily opinionated, you never want to get anybody else's view at all. Because you don't like diversity. Diversity don't mean, watch this, diversity does not mean that, everyone's standing in different places. Because watch it, because it's love that brings diversity. Where there's love, there's unity. And where there's unity, there's power. So you got to understand, diversity does not mean, that everyone is different. It's just everyone is who they are and they're authentic. I love when people are authentic. Oh, my God. Look, I'm telling you, this is the problem. When someone's authentic and we start thinking they're different, automatically, usually when you say different, you begin to start approaching them different. Come on now. When you say they're different, automatically you approach them different. I don't like saying someone's different. I like saying, they're being authentic. They're being real. They're who they are. I love that. I love Metanoia Dallas because, we're supposed to be grateful for diversity. I'm telling you, let me tell you what kills joy. Division. Division kills joy. When people begin to start trying to always talk about their perspective in a way that, your perspective is, they talk to you in a condescending way. As if, only my way is right. My view is the only perspective that's true. And that's not right. Because everybody brings something to the table, and it's so amazing. That's why I love about God. God wants us to look like heaven. And if you don't like diversity, well, buddy, you might not want to go to heaven. Because in heaven, there will not be one race. There will be not one, mindset. There, because of the simple fact that God is bringing us all there, and God is so amazing. He's so amazing that he loves us just the way we are. And it's beautiful. He don't change a lot of things to love you. Now, it's not love when you got to change the way you are. I better not have to change the way I am to love you. I can love you being me. Why I got to be somebody else to love you? That's not authentic love. And God does not change his standards. That's what some people have a problem sometimes with God. They don't understand. God doesn't change his standards. God doesn't change his word. God doesn't change any of that, and he still loves us. And I think somewhere we miss that. Like, just because God said, hey, this is his stance on marriage, that don't mean he don't love you just because you operating outside of marriage, sexually. And he don't change that. He ain't going to change it. But he still loves you, though. Are you seeing this or no? And I think that it's hard for us to process that because sometimes we want to change in order to love people. But God said, no. You be exactly who you are. And you still and you still love them. And so you don't have to change. That's the beauty. But I'm here to tell you that division kills joy. Philippians chapter 2, verse 1 through 2 says this: therefore, if there is any encouragement in Christ, any comfort in love, any sharing in the Spirit, any sympathy, complete my joy. There it is. What's going to complete my joy? By thinking the same. Now, let me tell you what he means by thinking the same. By coming in agreement with what God's words say. That don't mean you're not going to have individuality. Thinking the same means we need to come in agreement with what God says. We need to all come in agreement with God's word. We're not all going to think the same. I love butter pecan ice cream. No, I just needed to get that out. I needed to get that out. I had to. I love me some butter pecan ice cream. But if you go and you just like vanilla, I mean, I ain't going to be mad at you. You know, we ain't got to think the same, but that don't mean that we can't be on the same page. That's your individuality. Are you understanding that? And so we need to come in agreement on God's word. Are you getting this or no? Yeah. We need to come in agreement on God's word. Look what it says. It says, complete my joy. There it is. Division kills joy. Complete my joy by thinking the same. Being united and agreeing with each other. Look at that. Let me explain this. Agreeing with each other. Sometimes agreeing just means I'm not going to think the way, I'm not even going to come up against that. You know how many times I done came in agreement with somebody by just not vocalizing my opinion? I don't agree. But guess what? I agree that God is in charge. And I agree that this too, you will mature past, or maybe I'm wrong and God will mature me where I'll see it differently, but I'm not going to combat against that right now. Are y'all getting this or no? You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to battle with this. I'm not going to argue with this. But guess what? I'm going to just do this, and guess what? It'll come to pass. Oh, my married people, if I had you up in here and you knew exactly what I'm talking about. There's so many battles that you just don't come up against. You're just like, I'm not going to do that. Why? Because guess what? It'll come to pass later. And I don't know how many times Helena is the queen of this. Seriously, Helena, my wife, is the queen of this. I learned it really from her probably. She was just like, okay. And now I'm starting to hold on. I'm like, hold on, is it something I don't know? You know, is it something I'm not getting here? Because you said it too calm, and I walk away and God deal with me and say, okay, you know. Not whether she was right, but God's word is right in this situation. Because I think the battle is who's right in the marriage. I'm right. He's right. No. Guess who's right? God is right. And so it's so important for us to get this. As I close this up, I want to tell you about a story I heard. I heard about this man that used to have a dog. He used to have a dog. And so he bought this dog to please his wife. And so when he got the dog, because he didn't like dogs. He didn't like dogs at all. Come on, let me tell my story, man. Can I tell my story? I'm telling you about a story I heard. And so he didn't like dogs. So he bought the dog, and so he started feeding the dog. Dog can't get the food by itself. Dog can't open the bag and put the food, the little kibble in his, he couldn't do it. So the man of the house ended up doing it. Putting it in his little bowl, and dog couldn't get no water, so guess what? The man felt like he needed some Dasani bottled water, so he bought him Dasani water. Dog can't buy Dasani bottled water, right? He can't do that. Can't do it. So he opens the Dasani bottled water, and he puts it in his little, his bowl, and he drinks it. It gets a little cold sometimes, so the man ended up buying the dog a little sweater. Dog couldn't go to PetSmart and get his own sweater. So he had to get him a sweater. I mean, the dog sometimes got to use the bathroom 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So what does the man do? The man gets up out of his sleep because he hears the dog crying. No, the dog can't get out of he can't get out the kennel by himself. So he opens the kennel, takes him outside, let him use the bathroom, bring him back in. Well, over time, you know, the dog got comfortable. The dog got real comfortable. So one day, the man that used to own the dog, he put a little, you know, kibble in his bowl, and the dog was eating, just going in. And as soon as the man put the kibble in his bowl, and he began to start moving because he knew how the dog liked it, right? He started mixing everything together because he put a little chicken in there too, a little chicken breast. Dog bougie. So when he put his hand to mix it up, the dog started growling and snapped at him. So the man said, "Oh no, not in my house. I don't think we're going to be able to pull this one off." So the man decided that he is going to take this dog to the dog pound. He can't do this in my house. Not in my house. I'm the one got him. This man is the one got him the food. This man is the one that fed the dog, gave the dog things to drink, gave him clothes when he needed it, took him outside, got up out of his sleep, to take this dog outside. Dog forgot that everything he had was because of this man. And so he got comfortable. And because he got comfortable, he snapped at the owner. Often that's how we are. We get comfortable in life. As I close this up, we get comfortable in life because God provides in such a way and so easy. He makes it so normal. He normalizes providing. Even when you ain't doing what you're supposed to be doing, even when you fall miserably short, guess what? Even when you know what I'm saying, it's uncomfortable. He does things for us over and over again. And what happens, we get comfortable. And then we start snapping at him. You didn't give me what I needed. Where's my wife? Where's my husband? Where's my... And we act like God just got to do it. And we forget. And sometimes we lose gratitude. And in turn, not only do we lose gratitude, we walk around with a lack of joy. We allow this to kill our joy because of the simple fact we miss that God is doing this, and we need to be very, very grateful for everything we have because he's the one that provided it for us. He's the one who provided our clothes on our back. He provided the job. He provided everything. I don't know if you like me. Sometimes I get like that dog. I don't know. Maybe you don't get that way. But sometime in my life, I get like that dog. Sometimes I start snapping, thinking that I deserve something, as if God just has to do it now. And I forget that everything that I have, everything that I am, who I am as a person, it's all because of God. Everything I have is all because of God. Everything you have is all because of God. Well, I don't worship God like that, and I don't even know God. It's because of God. Before I was saved, God was still providing for me. I didn't know the reason why the gun didn't go off, why I didn't get life, why I didn't OD on drugs. I was wondering why. I wasn't even saved yet. And God said, no, I got a plan down here. Because remember, not only is God as a God was and God is, but he's a God as what's to come too. So what was taking place at the time was gang-banging Billy, drug-dealing Billy, drug addict Billy. And God said, no, I'm going to preserve you from all this stuff that you getting yourself into. Because I got something down the line. See, God can see a little bit further than us. And so sometimes God has not provided the things that you may be complaining about because he's trying to protect you. What if God was that smart? I would like to go out on a limb and believe that God is that smart. God is protecting us. He's protecting you. And so if you've ever snapped at God before, just lift up your hands. Don't worry about anyone. That's what I love about Metanoia Dallas as well. We're a judge-free zone. Judge-free zone. If you've ever clapped back at God, wondered why you haven't done what I wanted you to do, when I wanted you to do it, who I want you to do it through. Help us today as we lift up our hands and ask the Lord, forgive us. Forgive us, God. We want to be ThanksLiving because that's the life that you created for us. A ThanksLiving, a thankful life. So let us all say, Jesus, I recognize that I missed the mark. But today, I ask you to please forgive me for falling short, for complaining. Today, right now, I ask you to wash me in your blood, to fill me with your joy so I can magnify the name of Jesus. Today, I receive you, not only as Savior, but Lord. I believe that you died on the cross and you shed your blood for all my sins. In Jesus' name.